Hello and welcome to Runkle of the Bailey. My name is Ian Runkle. I'm a Canadian criminal defense and firearms lawyer. In my recent video talking about the handgun freeze, and I say freeze even though what they're really doing is it's a handgun ban with grandfathering. So that's really what's going on. They just don't want to use the term grandfathering. But I mentioned that I'd talk a little bit about why they might have rushed this through. And what I mean by rushed it through is that they had promised that they would give notice to affected industry people like gun sellers and so forth. But instead, they just sort of dropped it down as this has already been done with 3 simultaneous press conferences. So that is sort of something to grab headlines. And what that usually means is governments do this when they want to push something out of the public consciousness to stop you from thinking about some sort of scandal or embarrassment. And of course, what happened just before this was there was audio leaked from a phone conversation that Brenda Lucki had talking about the response, or this was during the response to the Nova Scotia mass shootings. And she was discussing some of the messaging that she wanted put forward and why she wanted it put forward and how upset she was that it hadn't gone through. So I listened to this audio and I'm going to sort of share some bits with you. I've gone through and sort of identified the key bits because there's a lot of discussion in there. You can find the full audio online if you want to check my work, but this is really kind of illustrates what was happening here, and it's pretty shocking when you look at it. All right, so let's dive in and listen to some of this audio here. These are, as mentioned, clips. I'll indicate each place where I've cut just so that nobody thinks I'm sort of stringing things together improperly. All right, so this is the first clip here.
Flew it up to flagpole because it was a request that I got from the minister's office, and I shared with the minister that that in fact it was going to be in the news release, and it wasn't. And so I feel really, I was very frustrated, very disappointed, and I was feeling quite disrespected by what happened today.
Sorry, folks, all of that clicking is in the original audio. I'm not sure who exactly was recording it, but they mess around a lot on their computer as they do things. Now, she says, that she feels all disrespected quite a lot. And it's kind of funny how she talks to, well, I say funny. She talks to her subordinates in a very condescending way throughout this. I wouldn't want to work for her because she's, I feel very disrespected the whole time through. It's like, just say what you mean. You don't need to go through all of this. But it's really clear, like she states directly that she made a promise here to the minister, and that minister is Bill Blair at the time. Now, they shouldn't be making promises to ministers about, what their messaging is going to be, because the messaging here isn't just a communications issue. It's also an investigations issue, as we'll see. But if you're wondering what they wanted in there, there's a number of clips that talk about that, so we'll listen to some of those here.
I felt completely disrespected by the fact that I was told that Darren was going to talk about the guns in his speaking note. And as soon as I got confirmation, I advised the minister's office, and then it wasn't there. And so I don't know what's happened, but I think we have to do better.
Again, that's sort of really condescending sort of business, corporate, whatever. So basically she made a promise to the minister, and then she's really upset because they didn't put that line in that, and I'm sure she got chewed out because having promised the minister that she would include certain things, they weren't in there. And there's sort of more details. We'll listen to another clip here.
So how did it get to me that that the little one line that I needed to be put into Darren's speaking notes, how did it get to me that that one line was going to be in his speaking notes and it wasn't?
So again, you see she's wanting this one specific line, and we'll hear that again here.
And as far as the guns and the type and what was seized and what we were comfortable saying, there's a reason for that. And do we want to expand on that?
Oh, I understand the reason. I wasn't asking for anybody. I get that. I completely understand the reason. What I don't get is that I was told that there was a certain line that was going to be used. It eventually was used in a question when asked for a question, but I was expecting it to be part of the narrative that went forward, and it was only by fluke. Had the question not been asked, nothing about the guns would have been mentioned. And I was told that it would be mentioned.
So again, there's one line that's very specific, and she wants it to be part of the narrative. Well, right at this stage, they're telling the public what's going on. They shouldn't be trying to spin a narrative. They should just be speaking honestly, and, there shouldn't be political motivations. When they talk about trying to create a narrative, what they're really talking about here is propaganda. And that's really concerning if we have the police and the government sort of working together to push a particular idea for political purposes. Now, you might be wondering, why wouldn't they be willing to put that in there? Because she says, "Oh, I understand that." And we'll listen to another clip and then I'll explain a little further.
And in the email, Darren is not comfortable noting the make and or model of the weapon seized. I said, correct the investigative team, including Darren. And then the second question was, will he be stating another location of the shooters was searched and was negative for any more weapons? I said he's prepared and will do his best to include this in a response on same or within his remarks.
So let's talk a little bit about why they wouldn't be willing to put this in, because it's very clear that the specific thing they're talking about here is with regards to the weapons. And in particular, they wanted it identified that there was an AR-15 used because, hey, they're trying to push through a ban on the AR-15 and they've just been waiting for this. Just waiting because they had the order in council all ready to go. This was not something that was, a response to it. This was actually something that it's very clear they had sitting on a shelf, and they were getting all super excited that now was their opportunity. And so they were very upset that they were expecting this to be in the messaging, and that then they could use that as a justification for pushing the order in council through. But then they didn't get it. So why would the investigative team not be willing to share that? Well, in an investigation, police often hold back details from public knowledge. And there's all sorts of reasons why they might do that. It can help you identify who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't. And that can be significant both in the sense of evaluating the testimony of a witness, but also like evaluating confessions. If you have reports that say someone was stabbed to death in a park, but the police haven't revealed what the weapon was, and then you get a guy who comes in and confesses that he stabbed them to death with a hunting knife. But you, as the police, doing the investigation, you actually know that it was an ice pick. This person may not be an accurate confession. Sometimes people confess to things they didn't do, and there's various psychological reasons for that. But let's say, it's not a confession. Let's say you say, somebody says, well, I saw the stabbing and they had a hunting knife. You go, no, you didn't. And that can help you sort of evaluate that, especially if it's somebody who might have something to gain. You've picked somebody up for possession of drugs, maybe possession of drugs that's low-scale trafficking, and they say, whoa, we can make a deal here. I saw this really serious crime. You can go, no, you didn't. And we're just going to get you on the trafficking instead. So in this case, they were wanting to investigate the source of this particular firearm and try to figure out where it came from. And telling everybody that the specifics of this could interfere with that. That was what the investigative team had decided, and so they were not comfortable putting this in. There's some discussion that I'm not including here where they basically said, listen, we didn't understand this to be a direct command that, we understood that we had said, hey, we're not comfortable with this, and that would be okay. But it's pretty clear that she's not okay with that. She says how disrespected she feels several times. She says how we have to do better, and so on and so on. And you already heard her say that this came from the minister. She confirms that again at another point in that clip.
And so I figured we got through that wave until today, and yet I got hit again, not being able to come through for the minister on the simplest of requests.
So again, it's very clear that this was something that's being pushed by the minister. And I'm sure some people are watching this and saying, hey, Runkle, this sounds a little conspiracy theory. Like, this sounds a little, what makes you think that this is tied to this push for the gun control? Maybe they just want to educate the public. Well, that's also in the recording. So let's have a listen to that too.
Yeah, and Karen, sorry, go ahead. Does anybody realize what's going on in the world of handguns and guns right now? The fact that they're in the middle of trying to get a legislation going, the fact that that legislation is supposed to actually help police, and the fact that the very little information I asked to be put in speaking notes at around 11:30 this morning is when I started this, which was 3 or more hours before Darren was to speak, could not be accommodated. The fact that I asked almost 8 hours before for a chronology and a map couldn't be provided in 8 hours, but yet it could be provided on the 9th or 10th hour when it was too late, 4 days or 5 days after the event. So does anybody wonder why I feel frustrated, or I feel like I'm not being heard, which makes me feel disrespected? Is anybody seeing that, or is it just, am I being oversensitive?
I mean, you're being a little passive aggressive, but that's, neither here nor there. But the key thing here is that the police are not supposed to be sort of in bed with the politicians of any party, including the sort of ruling one, to push legislation. The police, in fact, should not be advocating for legislation at all. They shouldn't be pushing to try to affect the legal climate in that sense. The police writing legislation or pushing through legislation is one of the hallmarks of a police state. This is a very concerning thing. And the minister should not be interfering with an investigation to try to push a narrative that supports, their political goals. This is the sort of thing that should be a huge scandal, and yet is probably going to just go unnoticed by most people. It's probably just going to get sort of washed away. And in fact, this is also true of sort of the firearm community, because having had sort of a hand grenade lobbed into our midst, most people are worried about that rather than sort of the reason why it might have been thrown. So I think this is a big deal. I am very concerned about this, and ultimately, my prediction is that nobody faces any real consequences for it. Not Ms. Lucky, not Bill Blair, not Justin Trudeau, not anybody. So, well, except me, except other competitive shooters, they will face consequences. And naturally, this is not going to be something that affects... I don't think this is going to affect crime one bit. There's just not that... they'll say, oh, well, this will stop straw purchasing. There's not that much straw purchasing that goes on. And, if we stop all straw purchasing, which, okay, that is basically going to get undone if somebody moves one more trunk load or truckload or train car load of guns. It's just not that big of a source. Anyway, I just wanted to sort of make sure people were aware of this. I know a lot of people were aware that there's the leaked audio, but a lot of people haven't sort of listened to it. I wanted to share that with you guys and maybe get some more ears on that one. So let me know in the comments below what you think, but thank you for watching. Please hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and leave a comment. All of those things kind of help the algorithm, help the channel grow. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, Canada's National Firearms Association, the CCFR, and the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. At the $30 level, Sights and Arms Limited and Jane Babe and Luxor. And at the $20 level, Mark, Haywire, Dale Nesbitt, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsich, and Vicky. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters who will be in the crawl immediately following. Thank you for watching. I hope this has armed you with knowledge. See you next time.